Today's topic is extremely important. In fact, all the names that we have used from the past, and the luminaries, the wise people, the sages, and the stupid, and the crooks, everybody, their contribution here and there, we did it in detail. And with the rise and decline of civilizations, we also explained what went wrong and what was the good thing about these. So today we are doing India's contribution to the world of ideas, concepts, and ideas. So this is going to be a very dense kind of thing because some of these ideas are require knowledge of physics and psychology and a good deal of elements of philosophy. Therefore, the teacher has a certain responsibility. So, what we are going to do, I'm laying down the theme that Indians also don't know what their past was and what is their contribution. So, rediscovery of what the world learned from India, but Indians have forgotten. So, when did the world come to know about it? Will show light. And how did they come to know about it, these contributions, and how they adapted to it, or evolved them, plagiarized them, or used them without giving credit. So we have to, there are two needs. One is while we are enlightening the world that what was India like 5, 6,000 years back, 10,000, and the second is to awaken our own people. So we have as parents and teachers, we have a double duty. Not only that our next generations know about it, but how they disseminate that knowledge system, and how it originated in India. The most ancient surviving civilization is Hindu civilization. I don't know where the rest of the civilizations are. They were vanquished and disappeared long, long back. So, all the other most talked about civilizations and ideas or achievements of different civilizations which are taught in the world cultures, amazingly, they're not here. So there is Babylonian civilization, they did this, they built bridges, this, that. And the Mayan, they hardly existed for 300 years. Their history is very sketchy, just a little bit of what we learned from debris and the ruins. And the Mayan and the Egyptian and the Chinese, and of all places on earth, Mali civilization. I still have not been able to find out a single contribution or highlight of Mali civilization. And I'm a researcher for almost 50 plus years, and I have not yet been able to find. The idea is that what originated from India still survives, and Hindu Dharma is surviving, and Hindu contributions are there on which the rest of the world built their own knowledge system in the last 300 years or so. So many of the ideas are plagiarized or assigned elsewhere. Egyptian cotton. Before that, if Egyptian cotton was that important, then why did Rome buy cotton and give in return gold? So that is the question. They controlled Egypt, they controlled Carthage. They could easily get that from Egypt. Why from India? So if that came, cotton growing, it came much later. So reasons for introspection. Now this is very important. We all need to introspect. What went wrong? Why ignorance has no beginning? Nobody wants to start even talking about it. Why are Hindus so lackadaisical and uneducated by choice. So that is a kind of sad thing. Nothing happened in India. Hindus never achieved. Even today, they are parading about these kind of nonsensical things, and other people are cheering, and the political parties are taking advantage of it. And Hindus themselves, they are sitting on the fence watching the whole show as if it is not their business. Uh, or they don't have to do anything. So, and if you blame the people, the Mohammedans and the English, part of it was there even before that. That minding your own business and let their karma decide their fate, that kind of element of Hindu Dharma made people a little bit of aloof from the broader knowledge system. A skilled person can chisel marble like jewelry, but he may not know the rest of the entirety from where other ideas came. So, in nutshell, we have to do some introspection. Why we are this way, and now, if history is taught from the oppressor's point of view, like the colonial people, imperialists, and then, this is what happens. It's a weapon in the hands of the oppressors. So all the textbook taught over the entire planet, most likely, including India, is highly biased, and they are not aware of their past contributions. Now, there are two issues here because we are going into very dense kind of discussion on psychology and an eighth grader or a ninth grader whom the teachers are going to teach, they will not be, students will not be able to understand. Why I am giving the broader kind of building up on the basis of logic and hard sciences, it is because if the teachers know or parents know in detail, in a very broad, building a broad spectrum and interweaving different kind of disciplines into the narration of history and building a narrative, then they will be able to simplify. And of course, these lessons are not for the fifth grader or a sixth grader or even an eighth grader. By the time they have some knowledge of physics, so these lessons are at best simplified for the high schoolers. And if anybody wants to teach the elements in the beginning, then they have to tailor it and teach it in a simpler way that they can reach the student. Okay. So I'm framing it and they can maintain the structure and the sequence, but they have to really simplify it. And I'll give you an example uh, here and there. So, where did European scholars go wrong? Why are they misunderstanding? Is it a misunderstanding, absence of knowledge, or is it some kind of deliberate distortion? So, my understanding, because I have been uh, uh, teaching for a long time and fighting with the school systems in different states, even at the level of the textbook making uh, boards. I The problem for me has been that they are deliberately ignoring it, and you can see that this ignorance is not really ignorance, it is deliberately distortion and sidelined. So India's contributions are bias against India and speculation that this must have been because they don't know, they have not read the original sources. So obviously you are playing a guessing game and making fun of it, or being uh, being speculative, or just adding nonsense. So context of the language is very important, and they don't know the context. You see, the India is a tropical country, was always a tropical country. Nobody changed the location on the planet of the country. So the subcontinent where it is, and people who came from the north, Eurasia and America, North America, they are not familiar with the tropical culture of early people. They are familiar through the tourist and some diaries of the Arabian lifestyles and the nomads. So they pictured Indians also as, coming from somewhere, because they never tried to see the geography or locating the Indian subcontinent on the entire globe. And emotional experience that ties up to environment. If the environment is very hot, then you have necessarily a garment which is worn covering the entire body and even the head to avoid the stroke, right? So, if somebody says, what is the translation of a dupatta, a daman, we don't have an English translation because that experience, emotional experience is not there, and that environmental need is not there. So that word doesn't exist in the language system because the experience which we are trying to express is not there. And did not try to read the original sources, never tried. Medieval thinkers, when they were masters, they read it from the master's point of view, that how we can present it that these people were inferior people and we have a right to educate them and to mold them and to, whatever. Um, Baldwin, one of the prime minister of England, in 1929 said that we are in India for our poor barbarian brothers who were originally Aryans living with us in Germany and in the Middle East, and they separated and became barbarians. Something like that. It was a strange speech coming from Prime Minister of UK. So whatever they wrote was learned through Arabic scholars, explaining the problem with Western philosophers. Ludwig Wittgenstein argues this, and he was very much disliked by other philosophers of that time, 19th century into early 20th century. But he did point out something very important. He says the bewitchment of philosophic problems arise from the philosopher's misguided attempt to consider the meaning of words independent of their context, independent of their usage and grammar, and of course, their emotional experience or the background. In other words, it is out of scientific context. Let us put it this way. Now, ideas that shape the world. Now we are coming to the ideas. So, ethics in warfare, and that it is going to be according to Dharma, and there will not be any blow on the below the uh, hips. You will not attack anybody. If anybody is without weapons, you will not attack. You won't attack women, children. You will not fight after sunset, and the whole thing. And you will not attack the general population. And wherever there are cleared forests or deserts, that is where the fighting will take place. In other words, it was like rules of the chess. These are the rules. According to this, we are going to play the game. So, political ideas, democracy, even if there is monarchy, and for the whole about 1,000 of Hindu, not 1,000, up to 1,000 common era, the Hindu civilization and polity had monarchy. But then monarchy was at a certain larger level. Under that, the provincial level were chieftains, and then under that, there were the grassroots, like clans, communities, villages, group of villages. And you see, it was organized kind of individual to community to higher. Not the other way around. Monarchy down the line, it's the other way around. The people organize into communities, then they make a panchayat system to adjudicate all kind of disputes or important matters, and then they think that we need protection, and they create an army, and then they think there is has to be a bureaucracy and administration, and then one of the best person will be the monitor or the king. So that is how the grassroots democracy came into monarchy. So in political ideas was they actually stem from the cultural ideas or dharma itself. That without reason or suspicion, you do not attack anybody. And as a person for self satisfaction and self realization, what is you should be contented. You should be healthy, contented, and happy and tranquil state. So, in with that kind of mindset, why would anybody invade a country? People invade for survival, like the Arabs came, nomads came. People come for treasures, like the Britishers, the Dutch, the French came. And in fact, there was a competition between them who will do the most piracy of treasures and occupy lands which do not belong to them by hook or crook. So then there is niti. Niti is which is condensed kind of guidelines for the king and for the society, and uh, this is for this includes Rajya Dharma as also economic principles and several other. So in a larger sense, many people call it, the colonial philosophers called it polity, which means both economy and political system. So, as I explained, grassroots democracy, panchayats ensure that they support the independents and disabled and organize some kind of dispensaries and hospitals, even for the birds and others, animals. So Atharva Veda lays down the duties of the king, the welfare of the people, and that the king will, I already explained this in previous lessons, that the king will respect the will of the people. And Chanakya said that if he ignores the welfare of the people, or he himself is plundering the treasury, like Dhananand was, then people should revolt against him and remove. So Bihar has a long history, modern day Bihar has a long history of those kind of civil wars and and picking up a new king. In other words, the king could do a lot of good and organize well, but he cannot be a despot or autocrat. And there is no such thing as divine rights of king. Just because I am appointed by God. You are not. There were only two rules for making king a king. One was primogeniture, that the eldest son will be considered the heir to the throne. The other was selection of the best, that the best person in that family, dynasty, or even among the public will be the king. So these were the two rules that were used. So there's no such thing as divine rights, and there's no such thing as despotism. The words do not exist. Okay. Reaching self realization. Now we are shifting that from the political field to the Atmagyan, Atmabodh, that what were the other ideas? And people had goals, they had aspirations, and they are elaborately explained in the um, Rigved and other literature. Wherever you say, let it be like that, let that peace descend on me, or let everybody be happy, that is an aspiration. That is, by mistake, you don't say it is a prayer or a worship. It is an aspiration. May it be so. That is what you are wishing, aspiring. What happens to you? And there are goals for that. So reaching self-realization. This is the broadest kind of which explained upasana, vipassana, the bhakti marg, devotional path, prayers, role of temples, educational places, and everything. So self-realization, what does it include? Quest for excellence. If these things are missing, then life is mundane. This is missing in the current generation, almost worldwide, because of the social media and speed of the internet. Every bad thing that happens with the generation, current generation, in America or Europe, very fast it is transmitted to other countries. And how they receive it, maybe they exaggerated form of it, or they just kind of adapt it to their current situation, depending on their own mindset or the peer pressure. So the whole thing has collapsed at this moment, and people have really to find out, what am I existing for? After all, we are studying all these things and we are going to schools and colleges. What exactly are we acquiring? We are acquiring skills to perform daily tasks, and we are also learning skills for without which we cannot make a living and survival. But there is more to it. That more to it, when it is missing, that is where Indian uh, philosophy comes in and ideas come in. So, idea is quest for excellence, quest for meaning. What am I here for? Right? Purpose to existence. There has to be some kind of purpose I am brought here. Intuition. So, intuition helps. Once you have set these goals, and then you make conscious effort through discernment, all these ideas are contribution to the world. And many philosophers did absorb in Europe, and that was called the age of reason. That is when India impacted, and they found their some sense and enlightenment, new knowledge, and uh, logic of that knowledge, need for that knowledge. Then they started making conscious effort to use Vivek, and the birth of philosophy came up in Europe. But in India, besides Vivek, discernment, there was intuition, a sixth sense. People always have, the approach of a danger may be far away, but you have intuition that it is nearby and the linkage to it. So, inspiration, revelation. Revelation is deep down thinking and finding out that meaning. And when that meaning descends on a person, it becomes a revelation. Oh, I know it. That kind of. It is not that somebody else made the effort. Somebody did give me the framework or help or guidance, and you can say syllabus, but revolution was on my own conscious effort. Now, religions born in deserts, they are not dharma because there was a founder, and we know the founder, at least they say they know the founder, and they draw their source from dreams and hallucinations. So now we come to dissect where are dreams coming from and what are hallucinations. You see, daydreaming is hallucinations. I am seeing things which are not there. And dreams are definitely not revealed kind of that God spoke to me. When you are sleeping and dreams are a pause where your subtle mind is acting on the day-to-day experiences and creates a drama kind of thing in which you are both the seer and the actor. So think about some dream one of these days and check it out. Who is watching, who is acting, and who is recording? You see, it's a fascinating study given in Vedanta, that what happens to chitta when it goes to the dream state. In other words, the long and short of this is that dreams cannot be the gospel for the entire universe. And once you declare it is gospel, and if you don't believe in that, then there is a guillotine, and you will have torture chambers. I visited plenty of them in Europe, and at least one, some Indians should also go and visit one of the torture chambers just to see the horror of it. So, emphasizing blind faith. In all of this thing, there is no blind faith, and that is the original idea on which the entire thing is. The whole contribution of wisdom literature comes in India, from India. So the most advanced social structure, which we say caste system bad, categorization, rigid, no mobility, this, that, all kind of addendums, except what it is, what it was. So the most advanced social structure was family, kul, community, Varn. Varn is based on occupation, skills, and aptitude. You see, some people have aptitude to wield the knife. They may become surgeons and that kind of thing. Or some people are good in fighting and believe in fighting on behalf of the people. They are army and administration. And then there is community, kul is clan, family. So this is the organization of society. Where else do you find 7,000, 6,000 years back this kind of classification? Even the words that exist, there were only two classifications: the citizen and the slave. That is Greece and Rome. They had their own words for that. And then medieval Europe, um, second century, second millennia onwards, It was, let us say, um, based on feudalism, right? There is the lord, and then there are feuds, and under them there are serfs. That is what they imposed on India. When the British came to India, that is what they imposed by creating caste system and defining Varun as caste and making it rigid and adding Jamindari system, which is exactly the feudalism. So joint families were there, which built a support system. Then India never knew slavery. It is not mentioned anywhere else either. And Chinese tourists came, Tibetans came, from everybody. Greeks came, Romans came. Nobody mentioned there was slavery. So what was happening in the rest of the world, as I explained, there was feudalism, there was no organization, divine right of kings, and torture chambers. Either you agree with me or you are dead, that kind of thing. Free will and free choice. This is India's heritage. The exercise of free will. And literature, all of these ideas, they are in Shruti, oral tradition, Samriti, philosophy, books on philosophy, Darshan Shastra, Upanishads, and literally means up is near and sitting. It is a dialogue kind of thing. Shastras for almost every aspect of life. Under that, Dhanurved, Jyotish Vidya, Ayurved, Natya Shastra, Sam Ved, music, Vastu Shastra later on, even Kam Sutra. So post-Vedic literature, Ramayana literature, they build on social behavior, how to cultivate socially acceptable, um, uh, socially acceptable personality. So then language and grammar. So there is Vyakaran. There was no grammar in European languages that early as Panini, and even before Panini, some structure. Then education, phonetics and pronunciation. This was very much important to that, to the knowledge system, how you pronounce a word. And since Sanskrit has 65 in letters and vowel sounds, consonants and vowels, and Hindi has 46. So you have large number of vowels, each denotes a single sound, vowel sound, which means you don't have to add O and A together to make board, or A as in car and A as in, bat. So we have a and we have a. So you see those matras, vowel sounds. So it's a phonetics simpler. Okay, chanda, spelling wrong. Chanda is the science of meters. Chanda. So root words. Now there is th, st, g. If you add other words to it, it becomes, add suffix or prefix, it becomes a word, new word. So you can add any number of prefixes and suffixes, but root words are there. Root word. G, gati, gaman, agaman. So you can go on and on and on. Dialects and their role. So some of the words in common languages spoken by people, they came from dialects. And they say India has as many dialects as the river system. The moment you cross a river, a new dialect is there. So, I mean, these are proverbs and kind of meaty wisdom kind of aphorisms. So these help in the evolution of culture. Proverbs and idioms are there. Metaphors and similes. Entire structure of architect and symbolism in Dharma is metaphors and similes. Verses are metaphors. That the sun has seven horses, and even though the rays are white, but seven are the colors, um, it splits into rainbow colors. These are all metaphors and similes, which came into English literature much, much later. So, Indian philosophy emphasizes introspection. The first step is knowing the self. Foundations of guidelines, social personality. So, the Ramayana teaching teaches that Maryada and Sanyam, shaping of human behavior. Ramayana teaches that. What is ideal human? Ideals of human behavior. Equality and freedom of choices. These are these are inbuilt in in our shastras. Equality, freedom of choices. Then there is global humanism. You see, Vasudev Kutumbakam. Now, this is the modern world, global humanism, globalization. What is the difference? Vasudev Kutumbakam is that the whole planet is a family. We share a planet with all the 8.4 million species, and there is unity in diversity, and we tolerate and we coexist. This is what Vasudev Kutumbakam is. Whereas globalization is mastery over all the resources by one single country or group of alliances of countries. So they have to have the shipping lanes, mastery over that, mastery over water lane. There is no such thing as international waters. Everything is you want to acquire this lane, that strait, this bay, that sea. So it's a mad race of that. And this part of that, by the way, FDR, after seeing the horrors of the World War, he ultimately came to the conclusion that why are we fighting? The world is a neighborhood. And the way the trade is, international trade goes on these days, and international currencies, their values change, that shows that unless you have tolerance and spirit of coexistence, the whole thing will collapse. And this war with Iran has already shown the hollowness of globalization. We are globally dependent, and if one country is unable to supply that particular item, whole thing collapses. Hegel's dialectics actually is the nearest version of karma: action, reaction, retribution, compensation, and synthesis. And this is how the evolution goes. That was 16th, 17th century. Now, the cosmic reality. This is the idea which does not dawn even today to many of the people. Astrophysics is something which has just now, um, in the last century, came into being. So matter is indestructible, so is the collective consciousness. So you cannot have a system of one soul and all the souls going to the heaven. The universe is not like that. In this, our solar system, there's no such place as big where all the souls are dumped for a certain X time. Atma and Paramatma, all is Brahma. Shunya to Anantam. Our idea of zero, nothing. Shunya to Anantam, infinity. If you see over the horizon, it is endless. Somewhere your eyes fail to see the ends, and that is Ananta. That means our vision is limited to that particular arc of horizon, whereas it is beyond all of those. So Anantam, this is the infinity concept of infinity. Shunya, this is a very interesting thing. So the earlier sages, when they were talking to their students and talking loud, they were looking at the stars, and in between the stars, there are dark spaces. Either there are stars which have not reached us yet, their light, or right now that is a shunya, nothing is there. That shunya word came from that, nothing. Nothing is there. So this is India's contribution, zero to infinity, number system. And they made a chart of number system, mind-boggling. So there are 25 tattvas that make up the world. So Sankhya logically explains it. I'm not going to go over it. Those people who want to really study in deep study, they should read some credible uh, translation, because some of these translations are absolutely meaningless. And this idea that thou art, that, tvam, you, asi, is that you are, which means that creator of the universe divine, I am just that. You are part of that divine spark. And Isha Upanishad has a very interesting first verse. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. That all there is divine consciousness. Yat kinchi jagtyam jagat. From that, a little iota makes this world. Ten tyakten bhunjetha. Magritha tas sadvan dhanam. So why be greedy? Everywhere the divine is there, and divine is looking after every species, and what is meant for you is already categorically, meant for you, separated for you. So why are you greedy? By the way, ma gridha, greedy. See the similarity in language system, linguist. So, and there are so many of the anantam thing, that other than infinity, there is infinity. I mean, there is no other equivalent to it. Other than that, you split it up. So there are verses in Taittiriya Brahmana which connects. To me, this is the most important item in the entire wisdom literature, where in 6 or 7 sentences, the self, the nature, and the divine are all linked together. So, if anything else, a 12th grader or high school person or every parent should know this, not in that verse, because the Sanskrit language is lyrical, but Hindi or English you can translate as prose. So it says Agni, the 5 elements. Agni is established in my speech, speech in my heart within me, I in the immortal, and immortal is in Brahma. Where do I exist? In the Brahma, in the divine. So aham amrite, aham amrite, amritam Brahmani. I am immortal, and I am part of the immortal. So same thing, Vayu. Air is established in my pranas, and the rest goes on. Pranas in my heart, heart in me, and like that. And then sun is established in my eyes, eyes in my heart. And because the feeling comes in the heart through my Chandrama is established in my mind, and direction, sound in my ears, and the rest goes on and on. It is all ending in the same Brahmasmi. In other words, all there is Brahma. Prithvi is established in gross body, Apa. These are all ideas, and they look like abstraction, but if you look at the nature and stand there and see the vastness of it, take the kids, the students, to the vast space and just ask them to be there for 5 minutes and see who you are in relation to the nature and relation to that which is beyond the nature. So I said that these are difficult ideas and you have to really tailor it. So yoga, that is idea, yoga chit vritti nirodha. Now this is most commonly misunderstood, mistranslated, I should say. Chit is not soul. They say yoga is body, mind, soul. What soul? Yoga chit. Chit is chetna. Chit is chetna, consciousness, larger consciousness, universal consciousness. Okay. And turbulence the mind brings into the chit, yoga controls or blocks that. So let us see again. Yoga, chitta, vritti. Vritti is modification of the mind, what the mind has absorbed or the senses have conveyed. When they interfere with the larger consciousness, individual consciousness, yoga blocks it. Nirodha is literally blocking it. So soul business, please. Anybody who has any reverence for Indian ideas, do not ever use soul. Soul is used in a very different way. Okay. Yoga starts with sound vibration. Om is the sound. And everybody knows yoga is very popular. Coordination of breath with postures. So focus factor comes up. Sitting still is coming in the picture. So 8 limbs of yoga, most of the people know. And it helps shape human behavior also. How? That before reaching the state of asanas, and there are niyams, there is sham, dam, and then pratyahara, and asana, and pranayam, and samadhi. 8 limbs, they are part of they shape human behavior, the first 4 parts. And this is what is from Yoga Upanishad. Living Atma are prisoners. By the way, Atma is plural word. Of the joys and moods of existence to liberate them from nature's magic. The knowledge of Brahma is necessary. It is hard to acquire this knowledge. So original is a lyrical thing, and I could not find that in my notes. So environmentalism, reverence for devas. Who are devas? Are they gods and goddesses? Absolutely not. Where is the misunderstanding? Monotheism versus pantheism. This is all garbage. There is one divine entity, and there is no such thing as different divinities for each individual or each group of. So when people say Isht Devata or Gramin Devata, that means Devata, a particular energy or phenomena of nature is respected or worshipped in a certain place. So karma versus fate. Fate is not karma. Karma determines the next birth lays down the prints for the next sanskar. But karma is not fatalistic. It says whatever you do, there will be a consequence. Action will have a reaction. You cannot go back to the original point and say, I have undone the original action. That's not going to happen because we are all caught in time and space toward. And this is many naturalists later on in Europe, again 19th century, fate is the antithesis of natural law. We were always saying that, never stopped saying it. A natural law is something you try to fathom and make use of, but not fate. So, this kind of thing, we believed always that there is sanchit karma, there is agami karma, there is sanskar karma, and the whole lot of complexity to it. And destiny is not one of them. It can be the consequence of that, but it is dependent on the natural law. And it is one of the components. Certainty of uncertainty. This is another very good idea among the 100 questions that Yudhishthir was asked by Dharmraj. One of them was, what is the greatest wonder in the world? And his answer was that everybody see everybody dying and yet thinks it's not going to happen to me. You see, something is certain, and yet I believe in the uncertainty of that. Sitting right here, you see, I'm kind of feeling that existence is glorious. Existence is glorious. But then there is certainty of uncertainty as well, that someday this existence will not be there. This is an extremely great idea. Okay. Fundamental belief, nature and medicine. Where it comes from, sanctity of all life, vegetarianism. The ancients here suggested nature gives many things to nourish, and nature also gives antidote for disease. So from nature they found thousands of herbs. I don't know to what extent the number is true, but they say 20,000 herbs were used before the allopathic system came. And even today, more than 1,500 herbs are recognizable and are used. So herbal medicine made from plants and other vegetations were used, and their usage is still common. Fasting for self-purification is practiced. Fasting for women. This is another contentious idea. People think that this is it is a punishment for women to be fasting. No, Ayurveda says it is mandatory for a woman to be fasting. Because the cycle of a woman's life, if it does not end up in a conception, then fasting on the 11th day and the end of the lunar cycle, you have to fast to get rid of that extra protein that was generated in your system. So it is a very fundamental kind of thing. And about 120 pages I read in Susharat, which were devoted to women's diseases only. And here we are today prescribing the same medication for women and men. So the inbuilt defense system of the body, we believed in that. That is the idea of immunity. So when the disease is at the peak, that is when you really realize that something is wrong with you. By the time you understand that I need a doctor, half of it is already on the way back. Your own immunity has started fighting. So, journey of Atma with the Jiva. All these are ideas. Atma within the Jiva has a continuous journey, endless. So, psychology, 8 elements to material energy, mind and Atma, they are separate. Purusharth, marriage and responsibility, Saptapadi. This part is for psychology that you are prepared for taking responsibility of all the members of other person's family and your own. So, and Vedic Indian described 4 motivational forces to govern dharma, arth, kam, moksha. We have already done that. Whereas the Western psychology is still dependent on 3 motivational forces, and they are survival, and need to nourish, and need to uh, some kind of recognition. So, Abraham Maslow, he gave 3: enjoyment and pleasures of life, and survival and skills. Senses and mind, Dharmadas Lakshana explains how to control the mind and senses, and the entire literature. So psychology is inbuilt. By the way, Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter is all about grief and what your mind is playing on your grief. It is magnifying for something which is bound to happen anyway. And many youngsters who have been on the way to Vedanta, they know this thing, that it is not the consciousness which is Atma which is suffering, it is the mind which is suffering. If you control the mind, then that means you are not suffering. You're not letting uh, that part invade you, your mind, your brain. So these motivational forces, and yes. So Advait Vedanta is a whole different philosophy. Um, Whereas the Western religions, they say that God is apart from you, and you have to approach that God in a certain way and in a certain system. In Advait, it says that we are Brahma. We are Brahma. So that is Advait Vedanta. Hmm? Aham Brahmasmi. Upanishad is all that. And Bhagavad Gita is the commentary on all that. Okay, measurement of time. Nimishtu kalpa, blink of an eye, is the unit of measure, time measure. And to kalpa. Kalpa is about 8 billion years. Okay. And cyclicity, that the cycle repeats itself. There is after Kali Yuga, there is Sati Yuga, It is an oscillating kind of civilizations are oscillating. Time frame is oscillating in the sense that it is repetitive. However, it has a spiraling kind of motion. If you see the spiral, it goes up and then it can contract also. So, cyclicity, evolution, and that Dasavatar, and that we have, everybody says, talks about it. And every child knows about it, Batasya, Avatar, Kurma, and all that. So, evolution is that there is fish, and a child is lying on the body and moving fish, and then on 4 crawling, and the whole thing till it becomes civilized, and then it becomes perfect, and then it self-destructs. So it is an evolution. The end comes destruction. These are all original. And this is mind boggling. I won't even go there. But I do want to show you to what length did they go in number system. 10 to the power of 2 is Shatabdi, Shat, 100. 10 to the power of 3 Sahasra. 10 to the power of 4, Dasahasra. And then 10 to the power of 45, Sarvbala. And in between all these names. I tell you, this is beyond even mathematical vision. And this is why India never attacked, but Indian culture spread. Indian wisdom and discoveries reached across Europe via Eurasia, via Rome, and Greece. So anybody saying Asia was primitive, barbaric, this is what is taught in India also. And the new communist twist of education is given by Hopper. I have forgotten her first name. So she has totally reduced India to nothingness. Everything came when the invaders came. And this is exactly what the British wanted India to think. And sadly, to this very day, we believe in that. Everything came with aliens. One of the doctors, he said, I descend from such and such family. And then he was explaining to me 400 years back, 500. And then he said, before that we were Aryans coming from Caucasia. He says, you know that. I say, I don't know that. In fact, I don't believe in that. And this is the person who bought the book and read the mythical Aryan invasion theory. What is it showing? We deliberately don't want to absorb the reality as it was, as it is. Mental laziness or something? Okay. Wisdom literature in different languages, Laguniti, Buddhist Jatakas, Jain literature, Panchatantra, Gathas, Hitopadesh, Sangam literature, Subhashitam, Gurubani later on. So, in different languages. And that, my dear friends, is endless, but I end it here. Thank you very much for listening. Hope I inspired you to the extent that you talk about these original sources and what are the contributions of India to the world of ideas, concepts. So Europe itself says we were in the dark ages and nomads were far away from civilization. And still, we Indians think we are primitive and barbaric. And British made a civilization for us. Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and ask.
Yes, Namaste, Auntie ji.